Thank you so much for joining this second session after the beautiful talk and the insightful talk of Professor Rashid Gharawi. We have the pleasure now to welcome Professor Malik Ghallab. Malik Ghallab is Emeritus Director of Research at LAAS, at CNRS in France. His research activity is focused on AI and robotics. He co-authored over 200 technical articles and journals in conferences and with proceedings and several textbooks and monographs. Malik Ghallab was the director of the earliest AI research program in France between 89 and 96. And the director of LAAS CNRS between 2003 and 2007, and CTO of INRIA between 2007 and 2010. He currently chairs the steering committee of ANITI, the AI Interdisciplinary Institute of Toulouse. He is AI Fellow, Doctor Honoris Causa of the University of Linköping, Sweden, and member of the Hassan II Academy of Science and Technology of Morocco, and the Chevalier de la Légion d'Honneur. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today, Professor Malik Ghallab. You will be talking about the ingredients of national research and development strategy in AI. Thank you, Sir Ghallab.
Thank you, Professor Mahmoudi, for this nice introduction and also for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be with you. This is not a technical talk about my scientific research. It is more a general talk, and I believe that what you have asked me to cover meets the topics of your actual conference, and can be hopefully of use to some of your concerns. So what are some aspects regarding a strategic plan in AI? This is the topic of this call. So let's discuss the main terms of this title. A strategy is defined by high-level objectives, objectives that need to be shared by all the stakeholders and well understood, and these objectives need to be organized into goals and instruments in a hierarchical organization of goals and instruments to meet the strategic plan. So what is a plan? A plan is a collection of actions, of actors who perform the actions and resources needed for performing these actions, taking into account constraints and criteria what is being thought. And the plan organizes the actions with respect to their effects into goals. In AI, we know very well what is a plan. Planning is a very active area in AI. It happens to be an area to which I contributed with this book that is now some 20 years old, and this one is more recent, and we are working on another one with my third one with my two co-authors that covers more the learning aspects. You are very welcome to dig into planning. In particular, this book is available freely over the web. So the last component of the title is AI. So what is AI? We need really to in order to establish a strategic plan for AI, to understand what is AI and what we want to do. In many rather shallow presentation of AI, you see AI as something which is a mapping between data and some library written in PyTorch or something else, and in order to do some data analysis and classification techniques. Certainly, this is a very limited view of AI, and seeing AI as a collection of applications or seeing AI as an artificial human mind or human mind and body is something that does not correspond to the capabilities of the AI as a science and technology and needs to be corrected. I believe that the present talk has mentioned many things along this line from what I saw in Rashid's abstract. So giving this clarification about the notion of strategic plan on AI, in order to establish such a plan, we need to address a number of questions. Why a strategic plan is AI is being thought and is needed? What are its intended objectives? how progress toward these objectives are measured. What is the targeted AI? This is the last point I discussed in previous slide. What are the components of this strategic plan? Which tasks, which actions will be undertaken? What are the resources to be gathered and deployed? Who is concerned with the strategic plans? What are the actors? What are the stakeholders? Who will be doing what in which task? Who will be steering the plan? Who will be evaluating it? All these are important issues, and how will the strategic plan be implemented? How much resources will be invested? Where and from which sources will provide these resources? How the tasks and actions are organized and coordinated? So these are a number of questions, and the purpose of my talk is mainly to clarify these questions and help you, if possible, if you are involved into the definition of a strategic plan for Morocco in this endeavor. So the outline of my talk after this brief introduction is these 5 issues: why, what, with what, who, and how a strategic plan for AI. So let's start with the why. Why a strategic plan in AI? There are some questionable motivations that you hear all the time. You have to put such a plan because all the others have done so, and you have to be competitive in the global competition. You may have seen some summaries of national strategic plans in AI, such as this one that has been around for, and others that have been updated for a while, showing a number of initiatives by a number of countries that you recognize from their flags, and also summarizing the amount of investment in these strategic plans in the order of several billion dollars or euros, depending on who is investing what. So, as well as the EU, Europe, or the US, or several countries like Canada and so on, have been heavily investing in AI, and the OECD countries altogether, and countries such as Tunisia beyond the OECD, have been heavily investing in AI with more or less success. All this investment is probably only 1/10 of the investment of the big companies in the field. Another questionable motivation is to target GDP growth. I don't have time to explain why, in my view, it is a questionable motivation, but this is often something you hear about. We need to seek a GDP growth, and that's the objectives of the strategic plan on AI. And another very questionable motivation will be to train people in order to allow them to work elsewhere. That's simply not what you are concerned with. And more dependable motivation, in my view, is to pursue social and human development, using, for example, Human Development Index to measure that in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of good jobs and fulfilling activities to all the young Moroccan that are educated and trained in a field, in order to seek national independence at several levels, and in order to seek knowledge and the joy of understanding in several aspects. Another very important motivation is to contribute to long-term social challenges and adaptation of the society to the environment, which is a very challenging and risky issue. Good examples of important motivation in this sense are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that you probably have heard of. There are about 20 such goals, such as making sure that are fighting poverty, fighting hunger, working for good health and well-being, education, water and sanitation, and so on. So these sustainable development goals that were set by the United Nations have led to a number of projects in order to reach or improve things along these 17 sustainable development goals by 2030. And they lead to several projects in terms of sensing, interpretation, modeling in food and agronomic applications for these 3 goals, in terms of processing and dissemination of medical data and knowledge for good health and well-being, in terms of urban environment modeling, simulation, for decision support systems, sustainable cities and communities. Many of these projects have been coordinated by a structure of the United Nations called Global Pulse. There are over 200 projects that are being run by Global Pulse along these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not aware of any of these projects that is focused on or concerned with Morocco, but I believe that there is a tremendous potential in integrating with AI techniques, model techniques and tools to Moroccan cases of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Let me show a few examples. Fighting poverty, there is a project that you can find here that explain how you can fight poverty with a number of techniques from the analysis, data analysis of satellite images. These are Landsat multispectral image analysis, and also geolocalized data that you can find over the web. Hunger with a number of projects here again using image analysis for the main crops in several countries in Africa, and how diseases are affecting these crops. Quality of education, there is a 1 billion org that offered a number of high-level prizes to the development of light techniques for spreading out a good level of teaching and literacy over the world with very few resources. These are the two winners of the X Prize that has been given to these two different boards for education. Another example that is very important for Morocco is clean water and sanitation. Clean water is a critical resource now, and again, Global Pulse is involved in a project. Not aware of any application to Morocco, but I believe there is a tremendous potential for Morocco. Climate, there are a number of projects related to climate, such as meteorological phenomena, refinement of models, numerical models with data, the taking into account the photosynthesis effects and the impact of the warming on the level of the oceans. There are several projects going on that can be of important impact in Morocco. Using neural nets and using physical models or biological models in the photosynthesis projects in order to better understand and better fight climate change. So these are some of the examples of possible motivations that can be put together for national planning in Morocco. So let me summarize the why issue. Why an AI strategic plan? Education, that's a very important point. Research, development, infrastructure, the development of infrastructure to support all of these, the development of regulations, national regulations to allow all of these, and there is a fixed, very important point in AI strategic plan are the ethics, because AI raises a number of social challenges for society. What is desirable at the individual level may not be desirable at the social level, because the social desirability requires long-term vision and requires taking into account the values of a society, which may not necessarily be a concern at the individual level, but are very important in order to have socially desirable and acceptable AI. And you have to take into account risks and mitigation. It will be too long for me to develop these 2 points, but this is an important component of the why. If you'd like to hear more about that, I can forward you to this paper, Responsible AI Requirement and Challenge, that appeared and is available online in this journal. And this book is a number of work following a conference that I co-organized with my colleague Bertrand Braunschweig and also is available online about AI for humanity. So these are some of the elements regarding the ethic issues. An example of the French interdisciplinary AI institutes. France has launched some 4 years ago 4 interdisciplinary AI institutes, and the purpose and the objectives of the strategic plan, that was the main component of the strategic plan, is to build a strong coordinated network of reference centers with interdisciplinary AI, that is AI for sciences and sciences for AI, hybrid AI, linking data and knowledge and models. And the objective was to boost high-level education and training, but also to foster a link between research and development with a partnership between academia and industry. And this partnership is based on 3 tiers funding. That is, the funding of these institutes is based on the state for 1/3, on the universities and research organization for another 1/3, and the industry for the remaining 1/3. So the ANITI Institute, Interdisciplinary Institute of Toulouse, which I chair, is focused on safe, reliable, certifiable, and socially acceptable AI. So the verifiable, safe, and certifiable aspects are very important, in particular for critical applications such as aeronautics and space. Toulouse is specialized at the industrial level in aeronautics and space. You may know that Airbus plants most Airbus plants in France are located there. And this institute relies on 50 partners, academic partners. All universities and engineering schools of Toulouse are involved, and most industrial partners, including Airbus and the other industries in aeronautics, space, the transportation industries, and other aspects are involved. 50 main partners are there, which allows the program to put together 23 project teams or chairs, about 200 researchers. Half of them are tenured, the faculty members and researchers, and the other half are PhD students and postdocs. And we have been able to double the number of AI students in 3 years for the objectives of education and training. So this is, So this is a brief example of the motivation of this French Interdisciplinary AI Institute, and this concludes the first item of my presentation, the why. So what? What are we seeking? What is the AI that is considered in a strategic plan? And what is AI altogether? You will find many definitions of AI in classical textbooks and in the literature. The important point is to keep in mind that AI is a science. First of all, AI is a science. AI is not an app that you put in somewhere or integrate somewhere. AI, first of all, is a science. And this science seeks to understand intelligence through computational models. And it does this by the automating cognitive and sensory motor functions. You take some cognitive and sensory motor functions and you try to automate it, make it performed by a machine. And you do that by taking a task and describe in computational models as precisely as you can model it in a scientific way, these tasks, such as to allow a machine to perform. So you can have 2 types of tasks: abstract tasks, such as demonstrating a theorem in mathematics or making a medical diagnosis, or concrete tasks such as driving a car, where you have to perceive the environment and to actuate the car actuators in order to drive it correctly. So you have 2 categories of tasks: reasoning and acting. And sometimes you see definitions of AI along with the first one or the second one. And you have another important element for this definition of AI. How do you consider that the task has been achieved correctly? What are your achievement criteria? So often you see that the achievement criteria are relative to human. You have been able to drive the car as well as a human driver, or to do a medical diagnosis as well as medical doctor. That's one criteria. The other criteria is with respect to some rationality principles, and this is an absolute criteria, or is thought to be an absolute criteria. The rationality criteria will say that if you demonstrate a mathematical theorem, this theorem is valid. So you end up with two dimensions for the definition of AI. What are the tasks that you are seeking to automate, and two criteria, human or rational. And you can define AI as something that performs reasoning like a human or acting like a human, or reasoning rationally or acting rationally. So these are the four main kind of definitions of AI you can find in the literature. Let me tell you that I don't like this line of presenting AI for different reasons. The first reason is that the purpose of understanding intelligence is not specifically human. Excuse me, I have to interrupt something. Intelligence is not specifically human. Intelligence is also very important, and you can find intelligence in many species, natural species beyond human. That's one reason. The other reason is that these comparisons to human are often misleading. If you say that this image recognition perform as well or better than human, probably you do not compare the way human recognize things while walking, while performing their everyday activities. You compare while looking at the screen, which is not the best way we do things. Whereas a machine will have hard problems recognizing things while walking in the natural environment. And the third reason why I don't like this view of AI, or these definitions of AI, is that it tends to blur the frontiers between machine and human, which is very dangerous. So I prefer to stick to some rationality principles with respect to reasoning and acting tasks, with a caveat that there is no absolute rationality. You always have to take into account some criteria, or some axioms that allow you to define rationality. Here also, I would need a longer talk to explain why there is no rationality, no absolute rationality, and it is relative. So basically, this is my view of what one would seek to do within an AI national strategic plan, is to automate cognitive and sensory motor functions. So let's see what functions we are interested with. The cognitive functions are reasoning, as I already mentioned, perceiving. If you are interested in AI, you have heard of these two necessarily. Learning, such as how to manipulate with dexterity, with reinforcement learning, this kind of Rubik's Cube or other objects, and acting and interacting in the environment, if you consider the concrete interactions with the physical world. For decades, and for most of my career, we have been working on these aspects separately and trying to combine them. In robotics, here and there was an exception, and the difficult part is integration. And now we have a better grasp about integrating different sensory cognitive functions: reasoning, perceiving, learning, and acting and interacting, which are the main functions. So integration is the main challenge that should be pursued in the task. How do you automate these cognitive functions? With four classes of methods. You have the methods that rely on computational logic, deduction, abduction, inductions. You have methods that rely on computational networks of relation, hierarchies, ontologies, conceptual graphs, and similar kind of structured knowledge. You have all the body of techniques about probability, statistics, causality, data analysis, and you have all the mathematical techniques of optimization and constraint propagations. So often you hear that the method along these lines are symbolic, whereas the method about these lines are numeric. I don't think that this is a good characterizations of the methods in AI, because when you are considering logic or relation network, you have a lot of numbers. And when you are considering probability, statistic, optimization, and constraints, you have a lot of symbols. You cannot separate symbols from numbers. You have that in both sides. A better characterization is to say that methods along this line are knowledge intensive and rely mostly on a priori knowledge, whereas methods along these lines are data intensive and rely mostly on data. And here also, the challenge is not to develop this or that alone, but to work on the integration. So this integration is something very critical in my view with respect to the objectives of a strategic national plan in AI. So this covers the what. So now let's move to the with what. The main aspects for any field of research, and AI is a science and a field of research, are human resources. And in order to develop these assets, and this is an important part of strategic planning in AI, you need initial education at every level, starting from mostly kindergarten and elementary schools. I coordinated the work at the Academy of Science and Techniques of Morocco, the Hassan II Academy of Science in Morocco, about the perspectives for the teaching of science in Morocco. You can find this report that goes back to 2017 in the website of the Academy of Science and Techniques. Which is a comprehensive report and recommendations. There are some 40 or 50 recommendations for the development of the teaching and education of science in Morocco, and some of these are taken into account very seriously today by the Ministry of Education, from my understanding. So, and we are doing a number of things within the Academy in order to progress along this line. You can read this report if you are interested in this aspect. You have to also perform continual training. Many person with very good scientific, in particularly with good mathematical background, can be interested in getting more trained about AI. But you have also to seek attractiveness abroad, to attract people from abroad, particularly from Moroccan who work abroad. And you have to perform this development of human resources over long-term efforts and long-term budget. You see, you have to set this into some long-term perspectives. Two examples: the Toulouse Institutes on AI Amity. We have been able to attract about 1/4 of the tenured researchers from abroad. That was not easy, but we have been able to attract 1/4, and we hope that in the next 4 years we'll be able to attract more. We have been able to double the number of AI students in just 3 years. That's very important, and we are doing a lot of efforts for continual training. A more impressive example that I would like to mention is China. I have been invited a long time ago in 1985 to teach AI at the Tsinghua University in Beijing. Tsinghua University is the main scientific university of China. It is the most important one. And I was very much surprised to be invited as an invited professor for 1 semester into this prestigious university. I was a young researcher at that time. And when I arrived there, I understood why I have been invited, because I started to be known at that time, but the main reason why I have been invited to teach there is that there was no one of my generation at this big university, no one. There were people much older than me at the end of their careers because of the cultural revolutions. No one was trained during the critical period where AI was developed, and there were young students. So I contributed after that. I went back to China several times, and things have changed completely. And the results of that is that in 1985, when I was invited to teach at Tsinghua, the contribution of China to the peer-reviewed publications in AI were close to zero. You see the purple line of the contributions of China that raised from 7-8% in 2000, which is now the first contribution worldwide in AI. So China started a strong effort inviting people like me to teach there, but also seeking Chinese diaspora all over the world. I know several colleagues who are teaching at MIT or at Berkeley who have been offered in the 90s good salaries, excellent conditions. They built lab for them and asked them to come back or offered them to come back to China, and many accepted. And you see the results. So this is a very very important efforts exemplified by the Chinese case. So this is the main resource in my view. So who are the actors of a strategic plan in AI? Well, the main actors are individuals. That is, from the audience, I understand attending this conference, mostly you, researchers, faculty members, postdocs, PhD students, and interns, but also engineers, developers of libraries and use cases, experimenters that are not within universities, but possibly from industry and services. So these individuals have to be really motivated and involved in their research within academic and research organization, within industry and services, but also within associations, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, local bodies such as cities and so on, and government institutions that needs to be involved as actors in a strategic plan. You need also people to run the plan, to coordinate it, and also councils to advise it and so on. You need advisory and evaluation boards in order to run this plan. So you have assembled all these actors into the strategic plan, and this leads me to how you are going to implement it. A plan needs to be rely on well-defined projects. You cannot say, here are the topics or the themes on which you are going to work. This won't work. This is not a good way of implementing a plan. You need to implement it on the basis of project. The project sets precise scientific and technical objectives. Here are the objectives of each project. Here are the approaches that the project will be following, its work methodology, its work plan, and also how it will advance and be evaluated. So you have to start defining projects at the level of every team, of every group, and let them define their own projects. And you have to make sure that the projects are commensurate with the assembled skills and resources. If the project cannot rely on the appropriate skill and resources, the project will probably not succeed, and you have to put a set of projects into a global program. And to coordinate this project to this global program in research, development, and education. Remember, we have to rely on these three aspects. And finally, this program or set of programs have to be set into a global comprehensive vision, addressing all aspects of the strategic plan, objectives, and motivations. And this vision should be long-term. And this vision should allow to update the plan, to change the plan. A plan is not to be followed blindly. It has to be followed with a closed loop mechanism. I believe you know what a closed loop is, as opposed to an open loop. If you are not familiar with the concept, try to for example, to walk while your eyes are closed. Unless you have been trained for a long time about doing things with closed eyes because of short-sightedness or some other reasons, then you will see that it's very, very hard to do something like that. You need to develop other mechanisms to get a closed loop feedback beside the vision. So closed loop is essential. Closed loop means you compare the results with your expectation, and you change your expectation and you update. And you need to do that with advisory and external evaluation committees at every level, at the project team level, at the program level, and the strategic level. A plan is not to be followed blindly, is to be updated. And these updates will make your strategic plan alive and reaching its objectives. So some of the aspects that I mentioned are already available in Morocco. Others needs to be developed. I think you know better than me what's there. I'm aware that there is at the government level a strategy being defined, but I don't know exactly how far the things have moved. I think that a very important starting point is to start with an assessment of the situation in Morocco. And this assessment can be a white paper or a white report on AI and computational science and technology in Morocco. This white paper should go through all information about production, project, application, tools and resources and curricula being taught in academia, project and application and so on in industry and services, in government and local institutions. And this white paper or white report is something that needs to be widely shared. I think that there are some components of that are available, but I'm not aware of any comprehensive global assessment of the situation in the field in Morocco, and that it would be my recommendation to assemble such comprehensive assessment, probably from things that already exist. And you have to share this assessment with all the stakeholders, all the academia, industry and services, government and local institutions that may be concerned, and do a stakeholder mobilization towards this, what can be shared, possibly shared motivations and objectives, what can be put together between all these stakeholders, because different people will seek different objectives, and you need to find a common motivation for all of them. And you have to seek appropriate responses to the questions that I tried to clarify. Why a strategic plan? What the strategic plan for? Who and how? And of course, you have to evaluate and update the plan through local and global closed loop in order to make it well alive. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. And if there are any questions, I'd love to respond.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Malik Ghallab, for this very, very great talk. I think you covered a lot. You covered all the questions. And I think the community and all stakeholders and policymakers are very glad to have such content. You talked about the strategy, the planning. You talked about the why, the how, the who, all the projects Morocco can benefit from, all the challenges Morocco is facing, the climate change, the poverty, all such AI applications that can be applied and can solve such kind of global problems. You emphasized the global assessment we have to do. You talked about the white paper of what is the existence. Share this white paper with all the stakeholders and answer all the questions: the why, the how, and the who. This is very, very important talk in my opinion, and I received a lot of questions, Dr. Malik. I don't know how I can start and from where I can start. My first question is about your book. You mentioned it in your presentation, the Reflections on AI for Humanity. You summarized all the conclusions of the Global Partnership on AI Summit back in 2019. And the GPI summit in Tokyo in 2022 talked about the human-centric AI. Okay, and they resembled 4 big themes, which are responsible AI, governance, data governance, and the future of work and innovation and commercialization. The attendee asked the question: which one of these themes do you think are the most important for Morocco?
I think all of them are important. All of them are important. The main aspect is to consider the desirability with respect to Moroccan society, which may not be necessarily the same as the Japanese or the Chinese or the European societies. There are different considerations, there are different values, and there are also different criteria that needs to be taken into account. By discussing what is desirable, you necessarily have to take into account long-term issues. The one point that is stressed in several publications and several concerns about the ethics of AI is, for example, confidentiality. When you are in a society which is highly individualistic, where the main values are at the level of the individual, this is something that is very important. When you are in a society that is that stresses more the group, the family, a small community, it can be a village, it can be a tribe, whatever, you have a different concern, in my view. I think that several aspects in Moroccan society are very important and needs to be preserved. And this aspect of less individuality, more concerned about the group, the society, and all the nation. Of course, all the nation is something very abstract, but at the level of communities, this is something very concrete. It's very important. And this aspect of solidarity, in my view, is more important than confidentiality of data and so on, which is not necessarily bad. But the question was, what is the most important for Morocco? And my summary of my response is there need to be a discussion about what are the values of our society that we would like to preserve, that we would like to fight for, and that would like to be helped with technology. AI is changing many things. Really, AI is changing the way human behave, and we would like this change to happen in the good way for what we value in our society.
Thank you so much, Professor Malik Ghallab. The second question is about AI research. We have seen lots of research on AI in all the world. The big conference NeurIPS is organized every year. It's bringing up many researchers, mostly about deep learning, and they are talking about mathematics of deep learning and the applications and all, and that can be applied all over the world, and that can take into account all the ethics parts and the human-centric part, and the data, the availability of data policymakers have to have. What is the path of Morocco has to take to strengthen the research part of AI in Morocco?
Well, again, the main point on which I insisted and the main asset for strategic plan are people and education. So for me, the best path is really to strengthen education at every level. I mentioned the training, the scientific education in Morocco, and the report that was written some 5 years ago for the Academy of Science. This is something on which I believe very much. Unfortunately, the way science is taught globally, and in Morocco in particular, is not very effective and not very efficient. You see a lot of interest at the very low level. When a kid gets into elementary school, they are highly interested in science, and they get less and less and less. At the end of the elementary school, only half of the kids are interested in science. At the end of the middle school, only some 10% are passionate and interested in science. We would like to have the inverse of that. We would like to have at the end of high school 90% of the students be interested in science and have them involved. Science is very demanding, but can be addressed in different ways, not necessarily from a very abstract way. And a lot of things needs to be done in order to improve the teaching and education of science. And this can lead to a strong research and strong research groups in Morocco. Mathematics in Morocco works, teaching and research works well. There are good groups and so on. The link between AI and mathematical groups needs to be strengthened. There should be much more interdisciplinary work and involvement in collaboration between people from different areas, control theory, computer science, and mathematics, in order to improve or strengthen the research in Morocco. So, and of course, there can be interdisciplinary, profitable interdisciplinary work with other fields, such as from physics, industry, biology, and medical science, and so on. So, to summarize, first, education, then interdisciplinary project and joint work can be very profitable.
Thank you so much. The third question, I think, and this will be the last question, implementing the AI strategy in Morocco or any country or want to make this AI strategy have to be done with lot of money. What is how we can make sure that the public and private sectors are able to utilize the opportunities provided by AI, and how can make private sectors fund much projects in research and implementing AI applications and strategies?
Well, there is a weakness in Morocco, but not only in Morocco, in many countries in the world, about industry and research in industry, because industry is a bit short-sighted, lives with a lot of very narrow and short-term constraints, and does not invest enough in research and long-term views that can benefit the industry and services. This is a very important limitation, in particularly for Morocco, where industry is not very strong. We did some work and wrote 3 reports in the Academia of Science about that and how to strengthen that. So this is certainly a major issue. Now, Morocco has a number of assets in this way. So in Morocco, it's very easy to start a company compared to other Arabic countries and countries in the Maghreb. There are many more companies that are started and created in Morocco than elsewhere. Many more. There is a ratio of 10 when you compare Morocco to our neighbors Algeria or Tunisia, by the number of companies that are created every year. So this is a very important point. So it's very easy to start a company in Morocco, and many get started and so on. So it's a very good and very dynamic endeavor of innovators and people that would like to create things and so on. So the point of the weak point of all these efforts are that it's not easy to access to capitals, to investment. Getting investment is not easy. It's not easy here in France too, but it's even less easy in Morocco. You have really to provide the guarantees, and the investors do not understand risks. I tell the story of being a young researcher in 1981, attending IJCAI. I had a paper at IJCAI at that time. I was attending IJCAI in Vancouver, and there was all the community was very young. We were all very young, some 25 to 30 years old was the average age of the attendance of IJCAI. And there was a young guy who didn't look like a researcher, and who was attending all the presentations and conferences, and in his style and the way of behaving. And so you could understand that he was not from scientific field. So in conferences you speak with people. So I went to him and told him, what is your interest in the field? What are you working on? And he said, well, I'm not a researcher. I don't work in AI. So what are you? I'm a banker. You're a banker? Yes, I'm a banker. And if you have a good idea, I can invest in your idea. So you don't see bankers going to conferences and trying to find good ideas as very early on. It's the opposite. You have to go to the bankers and try to convince them that you have a good idea. And so it's a completely different view of Morocco has enough capitals, I believe, to invest in AI, because AI is not capital intensive. You can invest with not that much of money. It is intensive in terms of human capital, not in terms of dirhams as much as in terms of human capital. And this is a weak point, but hopefully there are more and more young investors that understand the long-term view and the risk-taking view.
Thank you so much. And I believe in this conference, it is online conference and all people can join, all investors, all bankers can join this kind of conferences. We are welcoming them, and they can take, listen and collaborate and network. My last question, because Professor Rashid Ghallab, he told us, the Moroccan community in AI told us Dirou Nia and foncez. Dirou Nia et foncez. What is your votre dernier mot, Professor Ghallab, for Moroccan community in AI, young community and researchers and professors here in Morocco?
Of course, the view that was presented by Rashid is very good. Dirou Nia, that's very important. It's to set some objectives and to try to fulfill these objectives. Plans are very important, even if you do not reach them, but because it gives you a drive and a momentum in order to go ahead. Now, I think that this momentum that can be given to you by your NIA and your plans has also to be deliberated with many people, and this deliberation is very important. It is very costly. You have to take time to discuss and so on, but this deliberation is very important. It is important with respect to the interdisciplinarity, with respect to combining joint forces, getting different views and different objectives. It is also important from the viewpoint of resources, but it is also important in terms of the necessary caution with respect to these objectives.
Thank you so much, Professor Ghallab, and see you.
Thank you.
Next time. Thank you.
Goodbye.